Okay, once again, this four-day quintessential annual gathering of the world's political and business elites here in the Swiss Alps in Davos is coming to an end. Now, of course, while the World Economic Forum sees itself and its role as, quote, improving the state of the world, which has been for decades now its mantra, there is an increasing sense among critics that it is more and more a family reunion for some of the people who actually are responsible for breaking the world. Now, persistent questions, as you might imagine, about the extent to which the global leaders who've been meeting here have the will to actually fix the world's problems. You mentioned some of the topics that have been touched on. Lots for them to deal with, obviously, during these 4 days in public sessions and in their bilateral meetings. But one thing that we have noticed and we've been hearing about is there is an increasing sense that there is more openness here in Davos, the one place where you find stakeholders from all three main sectors, not just the public sector and governments, but also the private sector, of course, the CEOs who descend on Davos, and now increasingly NGOs and members of civil society. And so joining me now is someone who represents sort of that broad spectrum of the public, trade unions more specifically. She is Sharon Burrow. She's the Secretary General of the International Trade Union Confederation, the ITUC. Sharon Burrow, I know that you've been coming here to Davos for about 18 years now with a very consistent, strong message about the need to change the rules of the global economy to benefit, you say, both people and planet. How has your message come through? Have you sensed any shift in the way it's been received?
Well, we were able to predict the growing inequality off the back of a failed economic model. And, of course, we are strong supporters of the climate crisis because there are no jobs on a dead planet. But when we first started coming here, we were a novelty. And we was kind of the voices in the dark, if you like. Now we do see a growing community of CEOs and unions and civil society who together know we have to work to change the rules. We predicted the inequality crisis, we predicted the crisis in the global economy back in 2008-9, and now, finally, there is a bigger group. They're not everybody. There's still the business as usual crowd, money, money, money. But there is a bigger group of CEOs who know for their own businesses, but for the planet and indeed for people, we need to make the change.
And you've been saying specifically that governments have been cowed by big corporations like Amazon, which you believe need to be broken up. Not exactly the kind of message that goes down very well with the Davos crowd, is it?
Well, when you're talking about a fourth industrial revolution, and governments have been cowed to abandon traditional market principles like competition policy to create a fair competition floor. We used to be angry with them about the fact that they didn't put into that floor protection of workers and human rights, compliance, a shared equality through minimum wages and social protection and bargaining. But now, technology unchecked is actually fueling monopolies. Amazon's a good example of that. It's going to be the world's biggest retailer within 5 years or so. It's buying up other areas. It treats its workers appallingly. No human rights, no organisational freedom. But more importantly, it's actually destroying businesses and development in many, many countries.
And I know that trade unions have for many years now been warning about the sort of issues that some have been mentioning here in Davos, the growing inequalities, the economic insecurity, and they've also been asking for some kind of an emergency response. Did you hear anything over the last 4 days that gives you and the people you represent any cause for reassurance?
We've got a lot of work to do, but there is no doubt that the call for a new social contract with a labour guarantee, a floor where companies do look at their human rights records, they do pay living wages, they do look to what are the systems of social protection with governments and unions. But equally importantly, the fact that we have to do that as we build a sustainable planet. We must fix the climate crisis or there will be no business or jobs.
Sharon Burrow, the Secretary General of the ITUC, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And as you heard Sharon there mention many of the challenges and the pressures that some of the leaders here are bringing to bear on the global leaders meeting in Davos. Climate change was just mentioned, and again just today the World Economic Forum, the organizers, pushing back against some recent research and criticism that has just emerged about the fact that many of the CEO and company bosses that have been descending on Davos have been coming here on private jets, polluting private jets at an increasing rate, at a record number. So a lot of issues for them to deal with.